Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. How many of us have wondered about something called the Book of Life? Have we ever lived before? Well, there's something called the Akashic Records that contain every thought, every word, and every deed that we've ever experienced, not only in this lifetime, but in other lifetimes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Roberta Herzog. She's been a minister and a counselor regarding the Akashic Records for 38 years. She is one of the most articulate people I've ever spoken with. She can speak about anything, and she is here today to explain the Book of Life. What is it we need to know that establishes a frame of reference for our understanding of why we go through what we go through? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Roberta Herzog to It's Rainmaking Time.
Wow, that's quite an introduction. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, let's start with what in the world are the Akashic Records. In the Bible, you're going to find at least 3 or 4 references to the Book of Life. You're going to find it in Job 19:23, Malachi 3:16, and Revelations 20:12, among other places. And so in the Bible, we have the Book of Life, or the Book of Remembrance, same thing. In truth, it's called the Akashic Records, Akashic. And the name is way back in the history of time. It goes way beyond Sanskrit. People think that it's a Sanskrit word, and it's not. It goes way back. And essentially, every time you have reincarnated, because God is a fabulous administrator. I've gotten that one down. Smile, smile. God's a great administrator, yeah. And God has a way of understanding exactly what has happened to all of us. And every thought, just as Kim said, word and deed, that you have ever spoken in this lifetime, as well as any other lifetime on Earth, or if some of you are planetarian souls, not many of you are, on any other planet in this and any other solar system. And so when we go into the heaven world between lifetimes, and we do, we don't get judged. People think that we do. We don't. It's actually a little bit more difficult. We have to evaluate ourselves. And so we have to look at every thought, word, and deed that we have ever spoken or talked about or thought about or done in the past lifetime. And we do this from the last breath of life backward and inclusive of the first breath of life. And this is where we make a decision on whether we have to come back again for yet another life on this particular planet of Earth, or whatever planet we happen to be living on. Now, hopefully, because this is a very, very important time that all of us are living in. I mean, we're making history every day that goes by. You can turn on any of the media, and you're going to see more problems every single day. Well, all of this has been prophesied, every bit of it. And so you knew this prior to your coming here. You knew what was going to be happening, and that Earth was going to be going through a great initiation, and that you were going to go through initiations with her. Just for the fact that you're listening to this radio program today, you could have been playing volleyball out there. You could have been seeing a movie. You could have been just driving along in your car listening to music. No, you're listening to a subject that somehow God got you here. God, in essence, said to your soul, you've got to listen to this. You've got to know more of who you are. And so the Akashic Records help us to understand who we are, what we're doing here, and where we're going. That's the best way I can put it, Kim.
Didn't Edgar Cayce also write about the Akashic Records, and do you agree with the way he translated it?
No, he never wrote about the Akashic Records. There were men and women who wrote about the Akashic Records based upon his fabulous readings. I believe, just off the top of my head, There is a River by Thomas Sergue, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, was one of the first who wrote a book about reincarnation and about Cayce's life. He believed in reincarnation. He was a minister, and he was very nonplussed about his work because he never asked for it. But he is the quintessential reader of Akasha, absolutely marvelous. However, if he did his work today with everything he did with not only prophesying but also diagnosing illnesses and prescribing for those illnesses, he would be arrested. He would have been in jail a long time ago because of our laws and rules and regulations now. And so, yes, he knew what he did, and he felt that it was, as I do, an absolute gift of God. And yes, I feel he was very accurate.
I did a show with Paul Smith and Simeon Hine, who are remote viewers. And Paul Smith, I should say Dr. Paul Smith, was one of the first remote viewers. And that's when I became aware not only of this thing we're referring to called the Book of Life, but that everything is truly recorded, because that's how they do the work that they do. They go in a different way into the past, the present, and the future. That's when I realized this is real. Everything really is recorded. But I'm wondering how you found that out.
Okay. I'm smiling because it's not the easiest question or the briefest question to answer, but the short answer is, even as a little girl, when people ask me, the normal question that you ask a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? This was maybe at 3 or 4 years old, and I looked up with my little eyes. I look very Chinese, little Dutch hairdo and everything. And I always had these almond-shaped eyes, and people wondered, well, how did she get out of that mother's body? My mother had big hazel eyes. I wanted to be an archaeologist, a scientist, or a secretary. I wound up to be all three, but I wanted to be an archaeologist. And I saw, and this is the short answer to it, my father had 2 books called Wonders of the Past. And they had a lot of illustrations in it that were sepia tone. They didn't have color photographs at that time in books. Remember, I was born in 1943. And so this was, about 3-4 years later. And this was like my bedtime reading. I loved it. This was an archaeological book. And we're turning the pages, and there he had a picture of what he said was the Gobi Desert. I said, stop, I want to see this. And I looked at it, and I looked up at him. I'm sitting on his lap, and I said, there's a big city underneath there, and I live there. And he looked at me, didn't know what to say.
I don't blame him.
Just kind of turned the page. I saw the city underneath there, so I knew as a little girl, and I knew also that I had to be quiet about it, because my parents, being not Orthodox Jewish, but they were conservative, they didn't want to know about it. And so if I wanted to have love, I really had to be quiet about all of this, because I was seeing lights, or what I call lights around people. We call it the auric field. And so it wasn't until I was maybe in my early teens that I couldn't hold it back anymore. And I was amassing a little bit of a library because there weren't any books available, or there were very few about these things. The Edgar Cayce books were available, and I was hiding them in the closet in a bedroom that I had. And so, yeah, I was aware of it as a little girl. I didn't understand the word Akashic Records. I'd never heard of it. However, when I opened up full-blown. I didn't have to, as they say, sit for development. And the first reading I ever did, I didn't even know it was a reading, was found out to be this man who I had just met that day, who in time would be my husband. And I saw how the pyramids of Egypt were built. It was quite amazing.
How did you distinguish yourself from just being a reader to an Akashic reader?
Because I had been involved with the church that I'm involved with now, the Church of Ageless Wisdom, which is a very, very small church. And there were a number of very brilliant clairvoyants in the church, and 2 of them, it's amazing having 2 people who did this, in one family, let alone one community. They were readers of the Akashic Records. Ralph Hand, who did this for about 60 years, and his daughter, Muriel Hand, who did this for about 50 years.